Your life.
Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Boykinen. I'm here in half burnout Boulder Creek, California. I am joined by my amazing co-host, Glory Jones. And briefly here at the top half of the hour, we're going to be speaking with writer extraordinaire Kevin Gosztola. Kevin, it is good to see you again. How are you today, sir?
Hey, it's good to be with you.
So the defense team for Julian Assange had requested a week extension before they turned in their closing arguments, and that took place a few days ago. And as far as I can tell, you're about the only person on the planet who's written about it. That's mostly why you're here. So please, if you could, because again, the closing arguments weren't delivered orally; they were just written. So it's not like anyone had a cloud video feed where we could observe closing arguments and the most important press freedom trial in our lifetimes. So please let us know how that went and where it stands right now, and what the main arguments of the defense were.
Yes. So as you say, I got my hands on this closing submission that went to the court. I can't say when the defense team is going to be okay with making it publicly available. And I can't comment on why they haven't made it publicly available, because I don't know why they wouldn't circulate it more widely yet, except to say that they have decided to keep it private for the time being. And so I was able to look at it and report on the contents, and what I found to be most important was that they spend 3 sections laying out why they believe this was a politically motivated prosecution. And, clearly in the conversations that I've had with you on this show and all of my interviews I have done, I've focused on a lot of this evidence, which I think is most crucial, because there are things you can pick apart from the case. There are standard arguments that you'll always be able to make in these types of extradition cases. So, for example, you say someone has political opinions and they're being targeted for their views. And I think that's part of the political motivation for the prosecution. You can say things like, oh, if that person is extradited, they're going to go to prisons in the United States. They'll sink deeper and deeper into circles of hell, because you'll likely be subject to solitary confinement, and that's cruel and inhumane. But anyone who isn't Julian Assange, who faces extradition from the United Kingdom, if they're accused of terrorism offenses or hacking offenses or any crimes that are extraditable, they'll face that future. They'll face that future because that's how horrific our mass incarceration system is in the U.S. And it's become a thing that actually discourages judges from approving extraditions to the United States. But what's unique to Julian Assange's case is the way in which this all came to be, the genesis of this case, the fact that it goes all the way back to 2010. We have a whole decade since we heard argument in an extradition trial for Julian Assange to be brought to the United States. The fact that there's evidence of espionage against him while he's in the Ecuador embassy, and you've got a private security company named UC Global that's targeting him in the embassy on the behalf of U.S. intelligence, which we believe to be the CIA. And the fact that you've got connections that you can make to officials in the Trump administration who were connected to the security state, who wanted this prosecution, who wanted to go after and target Julian Assange, like Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who was the CIA director. And you've got people like Bill Barr, who believes in things like the unitary executive theory, which it just says that he serves at the power of the president, and it's all about expanding executive power, and he's going to do whatever he can to advance the authority of the president over either our country and around the world. It's all about how much power can I amass, basically. You have the evidence of what went on with the criminal complaint and how it's issued. The first charges in December 2017. Well, why is that important? Because coincidentally, that's about the same time that there was a conversation privately. We believe it was eavesdropped on, but a private conversation in the embassy about how Julian Assange was going to get diplomatic status, which might help him get to Ecuador and be able to leave the embassy finally after he'd been in there for 5 years. We know now that Fidel Narvaez was going to try and help him leave the embassy on Christmas that year, but they backed away from it, not believing they would be able to get out without the British police or any other authorities pouncing on him. And so anyways, there are lots of different details which we knew, but to see it all fleshed out and organized, what was important, and to see, it stated clearly, the other fact that Chelsea Manning's court-martial was held, and they could have gone on right after that to indict Julian Assange and pursue the prosecution. Naturally, you would have thought that's what they would do after they got Chelsea Manning successfully convicted, that they would turn around in a federal court and pursue Julian Assange. But they didn't. And, we know the issues. We know why they backed away. We know why they didn't believe. And, you say what you will about the audacity of hope. In this case, the Trump administration had more audacity to bring this case against Julian Assange. And that's why we're here, is they didn't care about press freedom at all. They didn't care what they were going to be seen as doing around the world. And so they went ahead and indicted him. And, that's where this stands. This judge is going to review this case based upon how the Trump administration conducted itself in putting together the charges and what they did to violate his rights and to engage in this political prosecution. And, the big $1 million question here is whether it's going to matter.
That's fair. I don't hold out like any hope that a new administration would be more favorable to Julian Assange. You have put together a pretty epic thread on detailing the intelligence and national security state apparatus adjacent or directly involved individuals who are part of the Harris/Biden transition team. I don't know. I know you don't have a whole lot of time here, but if you want to if you could briefly just kind of discuss who some of these individuals are and what relationship, if any, or what bearing, if any, that may have on the continued persecution and prosecution of Julian Assange.
Yeah, so what I'll say, the reason I have limited time is I'm putting together a report for my friends over at the Gray Zone that's going to be up there, collecting all of this together just so that people can have it. I did a similar piece for them back around the Democratic National Convention committees, because they had the same group of corporate consultants and neoliberal think tankers and national security hawks and foreign policy wonks that were part of the blob. And, they assembled this, team that you're talking about is essentially, in my view, going to be the kind of force field around Joe Biden, so he is not pulled to the left. We keep hearing all this magical thinking from progressives about, we got him in there, now we're just going to pull him to the left. And it's like, look
That's
at
how
this.
leverage works, by the way. You don't give up all the leverage you have, and you don't go like, hey, maybe by sheepdogging for the Dems for months straight, that'll make them have like a sudden change of heart and just allow us to run the party. No, it doesn't work that way. You sheepdogged and you got fucking used, and now people are acting surprised that there's still a disdain for the progressive movement. Like, no, that you just played yourselves.
But this list of people, while there may be a handful here and there of people who, one-on-one, I would probably be able to have a decent political conversation with, by and large, the vast majority of them are going to be putting together this plan for how Biden begins his administration that makes him progressive proof, basically. Like there's just like, he's going to hit the ground running and there's not going to be a whole lot that we can do to move him. Now you say, who are the people that are being brought on board to help develop his policy that might relate to what we're talking about here? Well, I was excited to find, not because I want this person to be involved, but because I'm a journalist who likes digging. And when you get the thing that makes you feel like it's worth it to be doing this work, you get excited. And I found that Neil McBride was given a position on the Justice Department Review Group. And I don't know if either of you know who that is, but he oversaw the WikiLeaks grand jury investigation.
Oh.
Ah, damn it.
I hope we didn't lose him.
Of course it would cut out right when Kevin's ready to expose Neil McBride.
I know. Damn it, bad Kevin.
Right? It's bad Kevin versus
there
Kevin.
he is.
There we go.
Yeah.
I feel like I got dropped there.
Yeah, right as you were getting right, like the last thing that you said was WikiLeaks grand jury, and then it just cut out on you.
Great timing.
Yeah. Well, okay. So to all my friends at the NSA who are watching our conversation tonight and decided they wanted to join, yeah. Well, the new thing, I don't know, you probably didn't catch my show with Max Blumenthal, but we said that this was the new sign for the Red-Brown Alliance.
Okay.
Because that's what freaks them out, that their worst nightmare is the idea that the fascists of the world come together with the left and unite against the elites and throw them out of power. And so anyways, I'm not saying that's what I plan to do, but I like trolling a good security state official.
For sure.
So 2 thumbs up for the people eavesdropping on our show tonight. What I was saying was Neil McBride was leaving his position just at the time that he was supposed to take on Edward Snowden's case, the NSA whistleblower. And and Ed's been giving me a good boost for my thread. So a lot of gratitude to him, because many people are coming to my work today after he shared it. Neil McBride, I shared this clip from when he was at the Aspen Security Forum, and he's such a dope. He's sat there and he was asked why he was trying to force a journalist, James Risen, to testify against his source or reveal confidential sources in a court of law. And in order to prosecute Jeffrey Sterling, who is a CIA whistleblower, he just, he wouldn't answer the question. He just kept saying a lot of garbage. And he talked about how like leak prosecutions have a high threshold because it's national defense information. So it has to be a certain thing. The problem that I have with that, and what a lot of people don't understand, is that that's such a broad universe of information. I've said that when I've talked to you before. It's not just that it's classified. If it's sensitive, you can be in trouble. I mean, anything that they deem sensitive, you could be accused of violating the Espionage Act and prosecuted. So anyways, that guy, he's involved. And then, what I do, there's a couple other individuals that kind of relate to these issues that make me believe that it's probably not going to be great for Julian Assange if any of them get to have their way. There's another woman. She was a U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Michigan, and her name's Barb Mcquaid. And basically, I'll just say that she doesn't think WikiLeaks is a media organization. She doesn't think it's journalism. And she also doesn't think The Intercept is journalism either. So she's got a very absurd view about who is and is not a journalist.
Well, I have heard, Kevin, that The Intercept passed on somebody's incredibly detailed reporting of the Julian Assange case because they specifically thought that said journalist had untoward political opinions. So at least in the case of The Intercept out of New York and DC, I mean, there's an argument to be made that they are not exactly the bastion of journalistic hope for the world. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all before you have to wrap, but that was a fucking really interesting little moment in time right there.
Yeah, I got pulled into Glenn Greenwald's drama, and everyone was looking at me and knew he was talking about me, and it didn't take very long. And I'm not really entirely sure I wanted to be a part of it, but I was brought into it. And all I can say is that, yeah, I did. I made an offer. I'm not sure that anyone other than the editor-in-chief, Betsy Reed, had any idea that I was interested, because I can say that there are some people who I'm friendly with at The Intercept that seemed to like my work during it and didn't really know that they had the option of publishing my work. But that being said, this is a media organization that branded itself as some place that covered and cared about whistleblowers and reporting on leaks. And yet, where were they? Like we got to September, this starts, and, they didn't have anything. They had one article that they published, and then they published an article after the trial was over. And the one article that they published during the trial was based on my work. It wasn't even original reporting. Like they couldn't even get somebody to just join for a day. I don't actually think they even knew how to get credentialed. I mean, here's a people who want you to submit their sensitive leaks to their website, which, they don't really have that great of a track record. I mean, most of the time you get caught if you leak to The Intercept.
Burn sources like I do joints.
Never leak to The Intercept.
But, we don't, and I think a very valid concern is we still don't have the report, the post-mortem report of what happened with Reality Winner. They did a thorough investigation, and out of transparency, I mean, here's a media organization that's all about transparency, and they've yet to let us read what went down and why it got so fucked up and messed everything over. I mean, now their source Reality's in prison right now, and in a second or third wave of COVID in the prison industrial complex that she has to just batten down the hatches and wait to try and make it through. She's had COVID once already. So anyways.
Yeah. And Daniel Hale's about to get hit with 50 years or something like that?
He faces a substantial case. We don't know. Well, we know that they're going to probably continue with it. Although it's been stalled because of the disruptions to all these trials this year. I was planning to go try and cover back in March because that's when he had a trial date. So just if I could throw out quickly, there's two other people I think that would be interesting to your viewers. There's Barb Mcquaid, who I mentioned. She's someone who's got a fair kind of interest in the FBI entrapment kind of schemes. She's responsible for Dearborn, Michigan, which has all of these like Muslims and Arabs and Sikh communities in it, and so also she was responsible for she was in the position when they had this total collapse of this case against the Houthi militia. I don't know if you ever looked at this, just for sake of amusement. These were people who were said to be like anti-government, violent, and it all just collapsed because their paid informant was the one that was trying to get them to do everything. Which honestly, I think that's about where we're headed with that case about kidnapping Governor Gretchen Whitmer that went totally off the rails. Like those guys completely manipulated. Trump supporters who are completely manipulated by an informant. And finally, I'll say, if you've got anything else to work in here before I leave, that's fine. But I want to make sure I mention Bob Litt. Bob Litt was a lawyer who worked for the NSA, or sorry, not the NSA, for the Office of the Director for National Intelligence. And he was the guy that you saw, you could not get away from him. I mean, you didn't know who he was, but his mug was everywhere after Edward Snowden made his disclosures. And he was constantly trying to pretend like there wasn't anything to see here. There's no scandal. There's nothing to reform. We don't have to fix anything. And he covered for James Clapper after he lied to Congress. You know, he was constantly saying that like, oh no, he misspoke, or oh, he didn't remember it. The guy lied. He lied. He scratched his little bald, shiny head, and it was not wittingly. Like, no, you knew it. Like here's the tell. Like the scratching of the bald head was the tell that you were lying. It had to be. Like if you were playing poker with James Clapper and he scratched his head like that, you go, he's probably bluffing.
That dude's holding a 2-6 offsuit, and I know it. Well, Kevin, I want to thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. You are a very busy individual. Will you please let people know where they can find your work and how they can support you?
Yeah, if you go to Dissenter, dissenter.substack.com, I've got a newsletter that I do weekly, and you can get coverage of whistleblower stories and updates on Assange and WikiLeaks. I sent out coverage of the closing submission. So there'll be coverage when the prosecution is going to submit whatever they have to say, whatever crap they've got to say about the closing submission in like a week and a half or two. And I'll hopefully be able to read that. And then there's going to be stories in the run up to January 4th when we are going to get the announcement from the judge on whether the extradition is going to be authorized. So that's where you can go. And then I'm at shadowproof.com where I do a lot of work. So thank you. I appreciated being able to talk.
Yeah, Kevin, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Always a informative and wonderful conversation. And yeah, guys, do go support Shadowproof. And if you haven't listened to Kevin's podcast with Randy Kallick, you should definitely check that out.
Unauthorized disclosure. I should have mentioned that. So thanks for bringing it up. Yep.
For sure. All right, Kevin. Well, we will talk to you down the road, and you have yourself a fantastic rest of the day. Good luck with the project for the Gray Zone.
All right. Good luck. Bye.
Take care.
Hell yeah. I enjoy when he's on the program. I do.
Likewise.
Very diplomatic individual. Very diplomatic.
Like listening to him made me feel calm.
It's gotta be like an untapped fucking kettle full of boiling over rage inside.
There has to be.
He hides it well.
Really does. So the reason that we had a show today is the whole thing with Kevin kind of happened by accident. We were pretty scattered on the Free Assange vigil the other night, and we didn't. We got through our witness statements, but we hadn't given an update on Julian's hearing. And again, Kevin's like the only person that I've seen that's written about it. I don't know if that's because of the limited access to the closing arguments, or if people are just so caught up in this election fuckery that they didn't even bother. But props to Kevin for getting the piece out, and and now we know a little bit more than we did when we got here. So that's always a plus. Sunday on the show, after like 18 months of trying to work something out, we will be joined by Cory Morningstar. And holy crap, is that going to break some brains. If you were with us last week at this time, we did a pretty thorough exploration of part 1 of Cory's series on the Netflix documentary The Social Dilemma, and how that plays into the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And today we are going to be going through part 2 of that, which is just a fucking cavalcade of horrors. I'm going to go ahead and... Do you need that article, Josh? Should I send that, or should I just screen share this shit?
Just share it.
Okay. So scripted.
Such a grifter, Steve.
Right? Love that image. That's fucking hilarious.
I know.
Hilarious. But yeah, so it starts off with a heartwarming title. It's not a social dilemma. It's the calculated destruction of the social order, the enclosure of Africa.
Oh, boy.
And I'm not gonna like try and read the whole article, but there's definitely some of these quotes are just absolutely the money in the way that they set the tone for what we're about to get into. So Zuckerberg's team has another related project named To Africa, a mission, as they call it. Civilians have been quite silent about it this time, but not because they don't have an opinion. It looks like many civil society groups in the continent are financed by Facebook itself. Ironic, right? Well, it seems like the missionary-like good guys from up north are going to save the world again. There's a 2.0 form of colonialism happening right under our very eyes. Facebook realizes it's running out of room to grow and develop markets. Instead of waiting for developing countries to build adequate infrastructure for its apps, Facebook wants to help develop the infrastructure and lock users into its ecosystem. Facebook is expected to spend $1 billion to bring expanded internet access to the African continent. Big tech corporations are wreaking havoc on the global south. There's a crisis in the tech ecosystem, and it's called digital colonialism. Digital colonialism. Do you want to kind of set this up for a minute, Glory, and we can come back to the article here in a few?
Let me get my thoughts together. That's not just me being pissed off because, after decades of literal colonialism, exploitation via multinational corporations investing and taking over entire sectors of the economy while destroying the environment and making sure that none of the profits make it back to the people, after neo-colonialist policies, after military expansion campaigns by the US and all other people in the West via drone strikes and military occupation. After all of that, let's do the same thing with the internet. That's what these fucks are thinking. It's like, it wasn't enough for you to do it literally. Now you have to do it virtually. Now you have to do it over the internet. Now you have to take over all sectors that are building the manufacture for internet to try and surveil and control people via virtual means. It's like asinine, and the way they view the African people too is like so condescending, and it stems all the way back from these neocolonialist fucks with like their stupid little MNCs viewing the African people in the mines that were children as well, like test subjects, like nothing but labor and test subjects. And that attitude is just carrying over like, oh, goody, little lab rats for my surveillance experiment. Like, oh my God, guillotine.
I mean, look, dude, yeah, I I know how pissed off I got by reading this, and I don't have an ancestral history that begins in Africa. I'm not sure where it begins. I was adopted. I'm not going to give Eric Schmidt my DNA so I can find out. But to the best of my knowledge, not a black dude. You know, and so I can only imagine like just the fucking fury that any sentient human being with a connection to the continent would have. It's fucking hectic, dude. Hectic. Let's get into it a little bit. I'm gonna pull it back up here. So today, 4 in 10 people, 42% of the global population, are aged under 25. Now consider that 76% of youth aged 18 to 24 use Facebook. I'm gonna assume that means like a Facebook product, because Instagram is a Facebook product.
Yeah, Instagram is merged with Facebook, but like ain't no fucking way that 76% of us are active on Facebook the same way that we are on Instagram and Twitter and like even Snapchat.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume that that's a Facebook or Facebook related products estimation there.
Yeah.
While the majority of the population, most populations in the global north are decreasing or flatlining, in sub-Saharan Africa, the populations are growing, with nearly half of the world's youth living in sub-Saharan African countries. I'm going to skip down here. For decades, population has been made a convenient scapegoat for climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, and expressed concerns over biodiversity and sustainability. It has gained an upsurge in popularity with New Deal for Nature influencers David Attenborough and Jane Goodall, selected by the World Economic Forum and WWF, promoting this narrative, a narrative with a fixation of black and brown bodies. Although it is Western countries responsible for the absolute bulk of these emissions and ecological devastation across the globe, it has not been African groups nor black academics calling on population controls for the West. Rather, it is Western and European groups, predominantly white and male, relentlessly targeting African nations and the sovereign bodies belonging to African women. Consider that in 1900, Europe held 25% of the global population, triple that of Africa. Yet by 2050, Europe is on track to hold a mere 7% of the global population. With white supremacy as a foundational structure of the ruling class, the feigned concerns over both ecology and poverty rings hollow. The race to recolonize African citizens as techlonial subjects has begun. That's a fantastic hybrid word right there.
Yeah.
This is a CO2 emissions chart showing that up until halfway through the 1900s, it was really basically Britain that was doing the lion's share of the pollution there. This is a fucking pretty interesting graph. The carbon footprints
Oh my fucking God. You know what that map looks like? That map looks like the fucking shit tweeted out by fucking what's her face? Like
Oh,
Brie
Green
Newsom
Newsom?
or some shit. Tweeting about how, oh well, look how backwards America is because we don't have Medicare for all in comparison to all these other developed countries, significantly omitting a whole fucking continent. And progressives are supposed to be fucking anti-racist. No, don't feed into Western-centric bullshit that just throws African people under the bus. I know progressives love to throw the global South under the bus, but like if I see it, I'm gonna call that fucking shit out.
Hell yeah. We have a super chat from Anthony Reyes, so I'm gonna address that and then come back to the article here. Thank you, Anthony. Is the Belt Road Initiative better than having Western oligarchs in Africa, or is it two peas in a pod? Look, man, my opinion is if a foreign power is trying to influence and dominate the overall infrastructure of a country that isn't theirs, and it's bad. So what China has done in the last like 10 to 15 years that the US has not done, at least in terms of Africa, is that when it goes in, it doesn't go in with boots on the ground or drones or tanks or any of that shit. It goes in with money, and it buys influence, and it buys I basically the loyalty of whatever is passing for a government in a country that has been historically destabilized by someone from the West. In my mind, the people of that country should have the self-determination and agency that we all should, and they should be able to make those choices, as a country without the influence of the West or the influence of China. Whether or not we're going to get there, not at this rate, not with a digital or technological colonialization of the country. I'm pretty fucking tired of watching world superpowers play who's got the bigger wee at the cost of fucking the lives of innocent people. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. That's a weird question because better for whom? Is it better for the people that live there? Probably not. Probably not. It's less violent, but that doesn't mean that it's less harmful.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because even though it could appear marginally better in the sense that it's not like full-on military occupation or drone strikes or violence, there are also like a lot of economic and environmental consequences to what Chinese companies have done in Africa that would be considered imperialism by any other means. And I'm saying this as not being like anti-China or any shit like that. I'm just saying that there's documented evidence of Chinese firms being involved in corruption scenes in African countries, in like the mining sector in the Central African Republic with the Chinese company. I think it was like a Chinese Qatari joint effort. The company was called like PTI or something like that. And they had, and it involved like illegal kickbacks between the government and the company that didn't benefit the people, and it had environmental consequences that were that went without liability for the company itself. So like there's documented instances of shit like that, and you can't deny it because even though it's not bombs being dropped on you, it's economic and environmental exploitation, and it has to be confronted. Like, and I'm saying this as like a leftist too, like staunch anti-imperialist, fucking like not anti-China at all, but people have the notion that like, being anti-imperialist means that you can't say a word about documented instances of Chinese firms exploiting the resources of Africa.
Well, that's a bullshit part of narrative management too. to where you've either got to be 100% for China or 100% against it. China is a shit country in terms of the way they treat their people. Flat the fuck out. They're totalitarian and brutal. They are. They're not a paragon of virtue in the world. Neither is the West. We've got global superpowers in a fucking literal dick measuring contest at the expense of poor black, brown, and white people everywhere. Everywhere. I have no love for the Chinese Communist Party, nor do I have any love for the Trump administration or a Harris-Biden administration or fucking Obama or Boris Johnson or fucking any of these shit stains, dude. I don't. You know, I'm here to hopefully get people to start thinking about their own self-determination and how the ways that you can do that without a massive centralized corrupt as fuck government. You know, I'm going to be consistent in that. Like, rarely are you ever going to catch me cheerleading for one particular leader or country, you know, although I got nice things to say about Bolivia right now. I do. But I mean, like, that's it, you know. Shit. I mean, that's about the extent of it. We had another super chat from Jordan Allen stopping by to say hi. Love Glory's fire. Never change. We love Glory's fire too.
Aw, thanks, Jordan.
And Red Sea Socialist, the DR Congo has 24 trillion worth of minerals and none of it goes to the people.
What's happening in the Congo is a damn crime. Like, multiple multinational corporations are in their mining industry for diamonds. I think it might be that's one of the main resources, at least, just absolutely exploiting the shit out of them with awful labor conditions. And it traces back all the way through history with Belgian occupation and King Leopold II, which, like, oh God, like, if there's ever one person that I really just wanted to fucking, like, strangle, it's Leopold. It's King Leopold. Like, the crimes he committed in the Congo are awful. And then, not to mention, going through that, you had, like, the one time they get a leader that's like, yes, let's unite and I'm talking about Patrice Lumumba, that's like, yes, let's unite the Congolese people. I'm going to nationalize our resources so that the profits go back to the people. And the CIA fucking kills him.
Mm-hmm.
And oh God,
Do you know how I learned about the Belgian colonization of the Congo and like that whole area, Zaire and all that? I learned it by listening to The Last Emperor, like old hip hop artist in the 80s and 90s. He might even still be around right now. I don't know. Like, but yeah, he was on a track with KRS-One and Zach De La Roca called CIA Criminals in Action. It came out on, like, I think it was the second Lyricist Lounge in like 1992 or 1993 or something like that. And I heard that track and I was like, what the fuck? I have homework, you know, and fucking, yeah. So I owe a lot of my understanding of that to The Last Emperor. It's one of those weird fucking things. If you listened to hip hop in the 80s and early 90s and it didn't suck, it wasn't shitty hip hop, chances are, and you were a white kid, chances are you had a mohawk. That's just how that shit went down. I'm not gonna go into it too much because it's highlighted a couple of different times. I do encourage everyone to go and check out this article. It's on wrongkindofgreen.org. I will make sure a link gets thrown into the chat at some point if we haven't done that already. But Cory focuses on shifts in population makes a point to say that by 2030, the U.S. will have more old people than young people, and the West will in general, which doesn't really bode well if you are a soulless tech billionaire who is looking to further exploit the younger generation. However, there are many more markets in which you can do that. Forecasts for this year, 2020, show only one non-African country, Afghanistan, placed in the top 20 countries for the highest youth populations. For these reasons, Africa has been a target of both fourth industrial revolution technologies, digitalized healthcare, education, identities, etc., as well as UN World Economic Forum Sustainable Development Goals. South Asia, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka is also recognized as a key target market. Under the guise of alleviating poverty, protecting climate and biodiversity, the SDGs are in reality emerging markets, with their implementation driven by the WEF, partner to the UN. Children and youth are to become human data commodities on the blockchain. This is the foray into the machinations underpinning the new global poverty economy. The majority of climate investments earmarked in Annex 1 states that the global north will be invested in emerging markets in the global south, created by the West for the West. This is...
Oh my fucking God.
This picture right here, this image, and we're gonna come back to it for sure. But what you see there running around Africa, the white lines, those are deep sea cables that Mark Zuckerberg would like to encircle the continent with in order to be able to operate his digital colonialization empire. Glory, I know you have some thoughts about this.
Oh, okay. That's some straight up supervillain shit. Like, it is. It's like you think you're watching a fucking anime and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna build a deep sea cable under a whole fucking continent. And like, first of all, and it's impractical too. Like, if you even want to place the deep sea cable right, then you have to make sure you have like a full map of like the topography of the ocean. So like, you know how to contour the cable to fit like the ocean floor. So you have to survey all of that, causing a bunch of noise and light pollution for these animals. And then after that, what kind of metal is this cable made of? Like, how is that going to affect the chemicals in the water? On top of the fact, like, what if it generates heat? Like, a giant cable generating heat underwater is going to fuck with the balance of dissolved oxygen in the ocean, and you can't fuck with that shit, especially when it's at the bottom of the ocean and you have animals that rely on that dissolved oxygen because they don't have light, so they need to get their energy from chemo fucking synthesis. Oh my God. And
So do you have any thoughts about this, Glory? Because yo, dude, and this is just the this is just the tip too. It really is.
I told everybody I would be ranting, and here we are. So
we are all here for it, my dear. We are. So here's where
not to fucking mention Conference of Berlin much. Like, you're just gonna carve up a fucking cable around a whole continent without any mention of like the African leaders involved in this. Like, what the hell? Fucking Digital Conference of Berlin head ass.
So here's where it gets like truly dark and twisted too. On May 13th, 2020, Facebook announced its plans to encircle the entire continent of Africa with subsea cable. At 37,000 kilometers long, the Two Africa cable will be nearly equal to the entire circumference of the Earth. The Two Africa project, valued at approximately $1 billion US, is considered one of the largest subsea cable projects in the world. Amazing to me that it is merely one of the largest subsea cable projects in the world. It will interconnect 16 countries in Africa, the Middle East via Saudi Arabia, and Europe. Facebook hasn't disclosed how much money it's contributing to the project, but it won't be a significant percentage of its projected revenue of $78 billion this year. Here are the players. Facebook's Two Africa partners include some of the globe's largest telecom corporations, including the UK's Vodafone Group, France's Orange SA, China's Mobile STC, Saudi Telecom, Europe's Global Connect, and Africa's West Indian Ocean Cable Company. The two African wireless carriers involved in the project are MTN Group out of Johannesburg, South Africa, and Telkom Egypt. Nokia, okay, Oish, Alcatel Submarine Networks has been contracted to build the cable. To Africa, whose aim is surrounding the whole African continent with undersea fiber optic cables, is an infrastructural feat that in usual circumstances would be considered the exclusive domain of governments.
Unusual circumstances. No fucking shit, you dickwad.
So, according to Bloomberg, tech giants led by Facebook and Alphabet Inc.'s Google are behind about 80% of the recent investment in transatlantic cable, driven by demand for fast data transfers used for streaming movies to social messaging. If one juxtaposes such priorities with our dire planetary ecological crisis and unprecedented biodiversity loss, one catches a glimpse of a society in intellectual and ethical freefall. As we enter a fourth industrial revolution, consider that after an approximately 260 years of progress, 30% of the global population still has no access to clean drinking water, while approximately half the world's population lacks access to safe sanitation. In tandem with diet, nutrition, and shelter, it is these most basic necessities that prevent disease and sickness. An estimated 801,000 children younger than 5 perish from diarrhea each year, mostly in developing countries. This amounts to 11% of the 7.6 million deaths of children under the age of 5, and means that about 2,200 children are dying every day as a result of diarrheal diseases. Unsafe drinking water, inadequate ability of water for hygiene, and lack of access to sanitation together contribute to about 88% of those deaths. As these Black and brown deaths occur in the global South, the populace of the global North remains largely and seemingly willfully blind to this normalized atrocity. While as of March 27th, 2020, The Lancet reported outside of two reported deaths in China of children who tested positive for COVID, there were no accounts of COVID deaths in children published in literature. Since this time, fatalities in children from or with COVID are extremely rare. I'm doing fan-fucking-tastic today. Although at first glance, that COVID is being prioritized over providing clean drinking water and safe sanitation must be considered insane. In fact, one must understand this as marketing, suggesting that the digital sphere amplifies existing inequalities. The UN official noted that among the most pressing challenges are tackling the lack of internet access in the world's poorest nations, where fewer than 1 in 5 people has regular electricity. Yeah. One cannot feed their children with the internet. One cannot bathe their child in a virtual world. The concern over internet access inequality, the push for equal access for all is nothing more than a public relations and strategic marketing seeking social license. This feigned concern over inequality is the storytelling that simultaneously conceals and drives the emerging markets. Oppression is reframed as empowerment. Data is the new oil. Let them eat virtual cake on their smartphones. Damn, Cory Morningstar. Let's see. Award digital badges for smart learning. Mine the data. Feed the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Continue the theft of resources, biological communities from the pillaged continent of Africa that underpin the imperial Great Reset. Enslave the children via technology. Smart slavery, smart enslavement, smart colonialism. This is a fucking money quote too. Facebook has long tried to lead the race to improve connectivity in Africa in a bid to take advantage of a young population, greater connectivity, and the increasing ability and affordability of smartphones. Oh, look at Zuck right there. How nervous do you think he was, like standing that close to actual black people for marketing?
Oh God.
Wow.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Wow. And this is phenomenal. Black Facebook users are having their accounts banned for speaking out against racism. It seems the intent behind silencing outspoken black folks hasn't changed in the last few hundred years. And while Mark Zuckerberg hasn't sentenced me to 39 lashes on my bare back, I can't say for certain that penalty isn't hidden somewhere. I've lost count of how many black organizers have had their Facebook accounts temporarily or permanently banned for posting content that even remotely challenges white supremacy. Glory, you and I were talking about this the other week too, when Instagram was fucking with LA activists.
Yeah, so, Instagram putting all these, nice, pretty stories about go vote, your voice matters, Black Lives Matter. Now they censored 3 LA activists and prevented them from live streaming anti-racist protests. That's very funny of you, Instagram, because last time I checked, protecting the community doesn't mean preventing activists from live streaming at protests that are happening in like real life. I don't know if they get that or not, but yeah.
It's a fucking cartoon. It is. It is. So this kind of like can lean towards the conspiratorial here. I should probably scroll back up a little bit. Facebook's announcement of the To Africa project followed a long and complex restoration process of an unprecedented simultaneous cable break. The 2 Atlantic Ocean-based 16,000 kilometer cable systems connecting South Africa to the UK occurred early morning on January 16, 2020. The breaks in the cables, only 8 years old, took place approximately 1,964 kilometers apart from one another, with one break occurring near Libreville, Gabon, while the second break occurred south of Gabon in the vicinity of Luanda, Angola. The same day, an 18-year-old cable called SAT-3 that runs along the same route was also reported broken. It was unprecedented that 2 completely geographically separate cables run by completely separate companies would fail within hours of each other. The breaks, cited as catastrophic, the cause as yet unspecified, resulted in frustrated users in over 24 countries. Upon announcing the full restoration, OpenServe, the infrastructure arm of South Africa's telecom, charged with coordinating the repairs on 2 damaged cable lines, stated it would conduct a full analysis of the unusual dual cable break. As a side note, in February of 2008, outages on 5 separate undersea cables in the Mideast were attributed to sabotage by a UN official. Talks about an instance of sabotage here. The cable break disruption in Africa created a well-timed segue for the Two Africa Project announcement by Facebook, which otherwise may well have generated backlash. When completed, this new route will deliver much-needed internet capacity, redundancy, and reliability across Africa, supplement a rapidly increasing demand for capacity in the Middle East, and support further growth of 4G, 5G, and broadband access for hundreds of millions of people. Par for the course and leaving no stone unturned, Facebook has taken a page from its capitalist predecessors, financing any possible opposition. This is hardly the only reason backlash has been muted. Activists on the African continent are often battling internet shutdowns, connectivity, and other issues, and also struggle to make headlines in the Western media even more than their counterparts in India. And there's an additional complication. Many of the African society groups are themselves funded by Facebook. They have so many projects at the moment. They're funding so many civil society people, including people you wouldn't think of. And they fund them to go to conferences and things. There's a lot of soft and hard lobbying on the continent. Dr. Henri van der Spy, I don't know, and a senior associate at Research ICT Africa Policy and Regulation think tank. This is a fucking gnarly image. Really. But it sounds to me, and Gloria, you can tell me if I'm being crazy here or not, sounds to me like two cables owned and operated by two different companies that failed on the exact same day, allowing for Facebook Two Africa Project to be able to step in and be like, hey, don't worry, we've got it, we can do this. Sounds to me like it could be related. I'm not saying
I mean, I'd say you don't sound crazy at all.
Like, I'm not suggesting that Mark Zuckerberg ordered these cables to be tampered with or taken down just so his project could waltz right in and claim the space for themselves. But it's not like that's unprecedented. It's not like there isn't a long and storied history, not just of Facebook, but of faceless, soulless corporations all over the planet destroying a piece of infrastructure so that their company can walk in and be like, oh, but we have this.
Yeah. I mean, I can at least somewhat rule out the fucking natural causes argument because they're so far apart. No way are these cables being affected by the same exact current or the same exact organisms or sediment from the ocean floor or I don't fucking know. It would take a massive upwelling event, which just doesn't happen like that. So just saying, process of elimination.
Let me pull the article back up because it finds a way to get yet darker. August 21st, 2020, algorithmic colonization of Africa. In the age of algorithms, this control and domination occurs not through brute physical force, but rather through invisible and nuanced mechanisms such as control of digital ecosystems and infrastructure. Similar to the technical architecture of classic colonialism, digital colonialism is rooted in the design of the tech ecosystem for the purposes of profit and plunder. If the railways and maritime trade routes were the open veins of the global South back then, today, digital infrastructure takes on the same role. Big tech corporations use proprietary software, corporate clouds, and centralized internet services to spy on users, process their data, and spit back manufactured services to the subjects of their data fiefdoms. The Two Africa Cable Project is expected to be in operation by 2024. It will surpass the combined capacity of all existing subsea cables serving Africa. For an idea of the massive profits to be realized from the capture of data, one only needs to look at the monetary outlay corporations are willing to place up front. The population of St. Helena, Africa is 5,000 people. Research suggests that approximately 60% of these 5,000 citizens will use the internet for a total of 3,000 internet users. For this tiny demographic, Google will spend $30 million US.
Couldn't they just like feed him and shit?
Like, but again,
Give him
We
some
don't
water
even
that isn't
egg.
all gross. Like maybe.
right.
Christ.
I mean, but look at that, though. I mean, the potential revenue out of their $30 million investment in the Canary Islands was $120 million. They quadrupled their profit. Sierra Leone, $30 million to $50 million investment, $600 million in return. Like, let me jump down. Here we go. The real prize here is not merely Facebook's billion-dollar revenues and growing global dominance. Rather, it is the infrastructure that underpins the further expansion of both 5G, that is the fifth generation technology standard for broadband cellular networks, rolling out now with virtually no dissent, and 6G, foreseen for 2030. 5G networks underpin the global expansion of the Internet of Things, big data, AI, biometrics, global digitalization, digital identification, autonomous lethal weapons, cybersecurity, and automated global workforce, etc. At 10 gigabytes per second, theoretically, 5G is said to be 100 times more powerful than the current 4G technology. 6G is expected to support 1 terabyte per second speeds. This level of capacity and latency will be unprecedented, extending the capabilities of 5G applications. Whereas China and US corporations own the platforms, Europe, China, and South Korea lead on 5G. Those that control 5G will control all the infrastructure upon which 5G technology is based. Together, China, net number 1, US number 2, and the EU number 3 represent the 3 largest economies in the world. Although the order in which they reign is sometimes contested, the 3 combined represent 48% of the world economy. From the EU, the US, and China, that's very nearly half of all the money.
It fucking pissed me off. Oh my god. Saving the fucking cable at Keanu. Ugh.
Let's see, where's the super creepy quote? Oh man, the free basic stuff is crazy too. So it's definitely worth going into a little bit. In partnership with Samsung, Ericsson, MediaTek, Opera Software, Nokia, Qualcomm, Facebook launched Internet.org in 2013. Basic data light web services would be available through a free app owned and curated by Facebook. By marketing its new product as the Internet, Facebook could make itself the center of their online world. There was no email provision, no Google services, no other social media platforms, and often no content in that country's native tongue.
So they're giving them AOL. Basically.
Yeah, basically. But
Jesus
Facebook.
Christ. Yay.
Yeah. In effect, Facebook was offering them a heavily centered version of the American internet accessed through a Facebook app, which directed everything back to its own services. In 2014, Internet.org launched the Internet.org app in 4 African countries. Users could access 13 websites without data charge, including Google, Facebook, Wikipedia, and a Johnson & Johnson sponsored maternal health site.
Good Lord.
On February 10, 2015, Internet.org announced the upcoming launch of its app in 6 Indian states following intense backlash. And there was too, man. India was not fucking having it. The business venture was rebranded to Free Basics in September of 2015. Wow. That's Facebook's reach in the global population. So if you look at, that 3.5 right there in the middle, the billion, those are people who don't have access to the internet, if you remove that from the global population, Facebook still has a reach of 2 times the population of China.
Yep.
In February 2016, yeah, I think that's because it's one of the quotes that are like that I want to fucking touch on, but it's further down. February 2016, regulators banned Facebook's free basic service in India in nationwide protests. Citizens argued that free basics expanded Facebook's monopoly power while simultaneously subjecting users to both censorship and surveillance. Holy fuck! You know, look, man, if the Indian people can figure this out, we should be able to figure this out. That's all. I mean, really. Massive blow to Facebook with a population of 1.4 billion citizens. India represented Facebook's largest target market. Since this time, Facebook quietly rolled out a new initiative into India and other targeted demographics with Wi-Fi hotspots called Express Wi-Fi. This initiative gives retailers the option to offer its users open access to free basics. In effect, free basics was rerouted through Express Wi-Fi. I want to jump down just a little bit here because this is more stuff about Facebook's reach.
Oh, this shit.
Okay, so free basics also fits in with 2 broader and interrelated trends in the digital industry: digital experiments on marginalized populations and data extraction. I want to read that again. Free basics also fits in with 2 broader and interrelated trends in the digital industry. So what we're about to talk about isn't related just to Facebook. This is something that takes place throughout the entire digital sphere, which is digital experiments on marginalized populations and data extraction. There's increasing evidence that vulnerable and disadvantaged populations, such as minority groups, refugees, and impoverished communities, are prime, albeit largely non-consenting subjects of digital experiments, be they designed to help or surveil these communities. Data extraction, for its part, is central to the digital economy. It is key to building unique, rich data sets that train competitive algorithms, which are then generally used to connect businesses to customers. Anti-colonialism has been economically catastrophic for India for decades. Why stop now? That's probably, at least to me, like one of the most horrific passes in the entire series. Like the thought, the idea, or the knowledge that large tech companies look at individual human beings as something to be experimented on so that you can surveil and exploit for profit. It makes me stabby. It does. It makes me flat the fuck out stabby.
Me too, Steve.
Whole fucking thing is disgusting, dude. Whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the article's about to wrap here shortly. We should probably be doing the same before too long. I'm going to go back to it, jumping down quite a bit from the article. And again, guys, I do really recommend that you read all of this for yourself. Take it all in, form your own opinions on it, and make sure you're here on Sunday when we talk to the author of this article. With Facebook's growth slowing in the West, the corporation must diversify. On August 17, 2020, today, the internet is estimated to have around 4 billion users. More than 2 billion of them use Facebook's products. But growth is slowing, and the social network has its eyes firmly set on the 3 billion people without a connection as their hope for the future. On September 1st, 2016, a SpaceX rocket exploded prior to its scheduled launch. Facebook had contracted SpaceX to deliver the first Internet.org satellite into orbit in order to secure new internet customers in large portions of sub-Saharan Africa. This would be key in providing basic connectivity via Internet.org to the entire world's population. The Amos 6 satellite was built by Israeli communications firm Spacecom Limited, while owned and operated by Eutelsat in France. In May 2019, the IEEE Spectrum reported that Facebook had established a subsidiary called Point View Tech to develop low Earth orbit satellites under the codename Athena. Business Insider reported in February that Facebook was going forward with its plan to build a constellation of thousands of satellites, with the first one launching into space in March. Last month, on September 3rd, Facebook launched its first satellite into orbit, a rocket encompassing 700,000 pounds of thrust, made possible only with massive quantities of fossil fuels, successfully launched over French Guiana. At present, with approximately 2.7 to 3 billion users, Facebook is closing in on almost half of the global population. Barriers include no access to China, with a population of approximately 1.4 billion citizens, India, due to the fact that fewer than 20% of India's citizens, in a population on par with China, have access to the internet, and sovereign states that ban Facebook, recognizing that it serves as an instrument to empire for foreign interference and destabilization. Good call. Such targeted geopolitical hotspots include the sovereign nations of China, Iran, Syria, and North Korea. The majority of North Korean citizens do not have access to the internet. This is in line with the threat of foreign and Western NGOs that serve Western foreign policy and capital. Consider Access Now, an arm of Avaz, which led a leading role in the annihilation of Libya, as well as the attempted destruction of Syria, was created with the specific intent to destabilize Iran. One can be certain that if Middle East countries were attempting to overthrow Western states, with social media serving as a key apparatus controlled by NGOs serving Iran, North Korea, Syria, etc., social media would be blocked in our countries as well. This is crazy.
Well, and they almost fucking banned TikTok just because it had ties to China, so you know that that statement is true.
Thus, to reach the global populace that remains off limits, and to secure the foundation and expansion of 5G that the fourth industrial revolution architecture is absolutely dependent upon, the race for satellites in space has begun. Although completely asinine, human-centric, and short-sighted, approximately 57,000 satellites are to be launched into space in this single decade. In tandem with industry's servitude to planned obsolescence, coupled with the rapid acceleration of technology, satellites will eventually be far more important than subsea cables. In the not-so-distant future, possibly the 6G era, sea cables may become altogether obsolete. So Facebook is throwing $1 billion into a project that they know will be obsolete by the end of the decade. They're not dumb. So how much profit are they seeing off of this $1 billion investment?
A lot that shouldn't be there, Steve.
I mean, dude, we can't keep changing the metrics on things like colonialism or slavery and expect people not to notice that all we're doing is reorganizing what it means to be a slave or what it means to live in a colony.
Yep. But you know what, Steve? Joe Biden won, so it's all going to be fine.
But Joe Biden, look, dude, I don't know who's running around saying that Joe Biden is president right now with any kind of authority, because even on CNN's website, it shows Biden with like 203 electoral votes, with over 200 electoral votes in dispute. The Associated Press doesn't get to pick our president. They don't. I don't give a fuck. Like, the fact that Bernie Sanders is out here being like, well, they called the race. The race has been called. There's no more. Like,
They weren't saying that shit when the crap happened with Gore.
dude, no, they
Now,
weren't.
now they're saying,
37 days it took before Bush v. Gore got to the Supreme
but
Court.
yeah,
37 days.
a fucking week, and they're like, it's a coup. It's like, what the fuck? Just because it's not benefiting your party, fuck off.
So look, man, that both sides are saying this is a coup. When you've got both sides screaming coup, the last thing you want to do is pick one of those sides. You want to be standing well and good away going, shut the fuck up. No, it's not. What we've got is an illegitimate electoral process. And if we don't fucking address that and address it now, we're fucked.
But they don't want to address it because they don't want to put in the work to learn about election integrity. They don't want to, not feed into their confirmation bias because it's uncomfortable to think that, like, oh shit, maybe I was wrong. Maybe my stupid electoral map predictions were wrong. Maybe the guy I sheepdogged for all this time is going to lose. And it's like, I can't with these people. It's like, bro, they're both fucking shit anyways. It's not like it's hard to not pick a side because they're both shit.
You trying to tell me that the kind of bread on your shit sandwich doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't, Steve.
God
Crack
bless.
me up when Whitney said that shit, dude.
God bless
Really
Whitney
did.
for that. That shit still makes me laugh.
I don't know. We're probably going to close out the show here shortly, but if anyone has any questions or wants to throw giant piles of money at us or something, now would be the time to do it.
Jesus.
See, that's why. But
I don't expect either. I don't.
That's why I threw out the shit sandwich altogether and I went for the fucking 5-star meal with the Wagyu beef and I declared Steve interim president.
Just as a reminder, as your interim president, DMT is mandatory. I am ordering the release of all political prisoners, starting with Julian Assange, and then I will begin a peaceful and rapid dissolving of the federal government.
Yes.
Kokesh style. I think that's one of the greatest fucking ideas he ever had.
Oh hell yeah, dude!
It's fantastic.
I found out because somebody fucking tagged me in it, but there are still people in the progressive sphere that are coming after me for having Adam Kokesh on my show or saying that I would vote for Adam Kokesh over Howie Hawkins. I would. It's not like either of them stood a chance of becoming president, but to the best of my knowledge, the Libertarian Party didn't go out of its way to rig its primary just so they could have a septuagenarian fucking 24-time loser get less than 1% of the vote and not even rake in $500,000 in donations.
0.2%, dude. Something like that. Some crazy low amount.
Bad.
0.2.
I mean,
and he's gonna run again. The motherfucker's gonna run again. He's already filed 4 years in advance.
Howie.
So they're gonna rig it again. You know they are.
Listen, no offense, white men, but old white men need to need to chill a bit. Howie, no.
Fuck that guy. The goddamn turf.
Yeah. And at the next, white man collective meeting or white man Wednesday, since that's what Pasta calls it, I need y'all to put in a word and tell Howie to stop doing this. Because the dude has the charisma of a fucking lobster. It's really sad.
I more or less said that on Twitter a long time ago. I've gotten some reuse out of it. I was a little more rude than that, but fuck that guy.
I got to answer a question.
We got some super chats in there.
Let's see. I just saw Rob's.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth. So for the first 2 weeks of this month, all super chats are going to get rolled over into the GoFundMe for Commander X. After that, we're going to roll super chats into the general fundraiser for Action for Assange to go back to DC in January. As Kevin mentioned at the top of the show, January 4th is when District Judge and Concierge to the U.S. State Department, Vanessa Baratzer, will read her decision determining the extradition of Julian Assange. So we are going to be on the ground in D.C. for that. We're going to have our first action the day prior because it'll be like 5 o'clock in the morning on the 4th when we find out what her decision is. So we are obviously not going to start our event that particular day at 5 a.m. 4 days into January in DC.
It's gonna be cold as fuck, man.
It doesn't sound fun. Yeah, well, we should actually be releasing the GoFundMe for that on Saturday's Free Assange Vigil. Let's see.
Check out the website.
Oh my gosh, we have a website!
Yeah, we do!
Sleepy Josh fucking kicked ass and put this thing together, and I think it is done really, really fucking well. It's slownewsdayshow.com. We will add features to it as it becomes necessary to do so.
I'm working on stuff. I wanted to get it out, but I'm actively making changes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Go Sleepy J.
But the entire Slow News Day archive is there. The Assange vigils, I think, for the most part, are there.
Yeah,
if not all of them.
Most of the last year is there.
And yeah, Glory, what you got?
I mean, I don't know what I should say that hasn't already been said. This was quite a little stream. That was quite a heartwarming article from Cory Morningstar.
Always light reading from Cory Morningstar.
Yeah, some light reading here. I guess I'll end it by saying this. Progressives, y'all need to stop being like the most Karl Marx locally, Hillary Clinton globally head asses ever. Like, bro, it's getting real annoying to see like every time a brown country comes up, you just want to throw them under the bus for the benefit of Medicare for all. Because it's like, oh no, we don't want any of that brown socialism in Venezuela. We want some of that good Scandinavian socialism. Stop doing that shit, progressive. Stop being fucking soft imperialist. Like, just stop being colonialist, because your movement's not going to get anywhere as long as you keep legitimizing imperial systems and as long as you won't pay attention to this shit. So pay attention to this shit, please, or else we're going to have more problems than we already do. So I'll give, my little thumbs up. Yeah.
That's funny shit. I really do enjoy when Kevin Gosztola joins on any show that I'm involved in.
He's very funny and low key about it. I love it.
Yeah. He's
quite funny though.
Although I do have the same rule that Jimmy Dore has for his show, and nobody's allowed to be funnier than me during the broadcast. Like that's how you don't get invited back.
Oh shit! I'm gonna have to override you on that one, Steve.
Well, so far it hasn't happened, so I'm okay with it. The override. I am. What a funny guy. I am. Objectively, you fucking.
You killed my ego, guys.
Hey, nothing a little DMT can't fix.
Okay, look. sometimes there's a resurgence of ego and that's why I continue to use psychedelics so that ego doesn't like unleash itself all over everyone. Because if I wanted to be, I could make Nico House look humble.
I don't know about that, man.
Y'all are not ready for that. You're not. I know you're not. I don't do that.
You won't be able to go. You won't be able to go on his show then.
It's okay, Josh. We'll keep him in check. There's more fucking bears of him.
Truth.
We'll get Nico and Fee on the show, and we'll eat mushrooms, and then we'll start having like a brag off and just see like first.
Oh, that'd be funny as fuck.
Like minimum like 4 grams, approaching heroic dose levels of that 5.5 dried grams.
I'd watch that.
I'd watch that too. Shit. Okay, well, guys, I love you, and thank you for hanging out for the stream. Thanks, Glory Jones, for being the best co-host in independent media. Thanks to Josh on the 1s and 2s and the websites, all this other shit, dude. Fucking for listening to my dumbass when I have like just one more fucking weird as shit day. I had a weird as shit day yesterday.
Hey, go stand on these hoes.
I got a whole bunch of Terry Pratchett books from my local thrift store, and just as it was like kind of coming down to decision making time as to whether or not I was going to go to Denver here in December in about a month. A plane ticket fell out of the book. A ticket stub fell out of one of the books, and it was dated my dad's birthday, and it was from San Francisco to Denver. And I went, well, shit. That was pretty clear. So I'm not really big on omens or signs or portents, but even that one didn't need to be spelled out for me. Fucking pretty just there you go. Thank you guys for being a part of this, and please be with us on Sunday when we have a discussion with Cory Morningstar. Sunday afternoon, the Rockfin only show, assuming Rockfin will let us live stream. They weren't earlier today. We will be joined by Allison Mason, one of the UK Assange organizers and protest members. There were at least 4 people that were arrested last Saturday at a peaceful demonstration for Julian Assange in Piccadilly Circus, where they'd been showing up every Saturday for months. And the UK has more or less criminalized protest. So Ali's going to come on. We're going to find out more about that. Saturday, Alexander Davidson, formerly known as Red Star Radio, will be joining us on the Free Assange Vigil. We got lots of cool stuff coming up. We really do. The following Sunday, the 22nd, is JFK Assassination Day, and the one and only Eric Jackman will be joining us for the afternoon show. And I think we're going to just kind of have like a roundtable of everybody's favorite JFK conspiracy theory. So that should be fun. And yes, Tony, Cory Morningstar had a great interview with Whitney Webb. She did. I actually got, that's sort of why she's coming on the show. Because the editor of the Guillaume Journal tagged me and was like, hey, did you see that Cory and Whitney had a conversation? And I was like, yeah, I did. I can't wait to listen to it. And I'm totally not fucking bitter. Totally not. And Cory basically immediately messaged me, and she was like, hey, can we pick a day and time so I can come on your show? And I'm like, I'll take the pity. I will. I'll take the pity interview. I don't give a damn.
Oh, poor Steve.
Mike.
What the fuck? What happened?
I don't know. One of your mics is all fucked.
What?
All right, let's wrap it up. Good luck to us all, y'all.